Welcome to Chat GRG. We're diving into a topic that affects more people than we realize: toxic workplaces. From manipulating managers to burnout cultures to office politics and silent suffering, workplace toxicity isn't just frustrating, it's damaging. But how do you recognize it? How do you survive it? But most importantly, how do you break free? Joining me today is Montserrat Ventosa, a psychologist and an educator on making work a better place for all. Yeah. Thank you so much, Montserrat. It's such a pleasure to have you here with us. Very, very eager to jump into this topic that we don't realize is as common as it is, toxic workplaces.
Wow. Yeah, thank you for having me, Robyn and Osama. I mean, it's amazing to be here. Talking about this is like the elephant in the room, right? The toxic workplaces, nobody want to mention it, but it's unfortunately more common than we would like to.
And for us, I mean, as a headhunting firm, I mean, we're getting that more and more, that people speaking out, I want to leave my place, my workplace, and because of toxicity. And so it's almost as if it's growing. Yes.
I believe many factors have influenced and have led us to here, but we are facing a pandemic, an inner pandemic of bad being, ill being caused by toxic workplaces. And the sooner companies and HR realize we have a problem to face and to fix, the better, because now is a drain. I mean, you're draining talent because the best talent are going to leave the first. Mm-hmm. And you're going to lose excellent talent, and then the bad ones you're going to fire. And what are companies going to be left with?
That's so true.
The mediocre middle.
When you say toxic workplaces, whose responsibility is it? Is it the company, the leaders, both?
That is a great question. And as everything in life, I don't think is a simple question. I think is a systemic answer that involves organizations and HR, the policies that they have been implementing too much base or bias towards perks and benefits, leaders who are not ready to lead because we've been training managers, management business schools.
Yes,
not leadership business schools, right? So now then we have managers who we are asking them to lead change, lead uncertain times, lead to the unknown, and they're simply not ready.
So how do you know when someone's ready?
When they can create flourishment and growth around them, not toxicity. I think it's very hard. I mean, we will have to change business schools, HR, but mainly the first thing is mindset, because people also have, answering to your previous question, have a responsibility, because we can choose. Toxicity is all around us, but also beauty and also flourishment. So if everybody focuses toward toxicity because nobody's doing anything, you will become toxic. So people also have a responsibility to say, look, I'm surrounded by toxic, but I'm going to try to make it better in this little bit of control I can have. So I think it's complex, but also simpler than it seems to solve.
So it's like a hybrid mix of both.
Yeah.
Osama, when we're recruiting as well, how do you know if someone's toxic?
Honestly, I mean, it's difficult because when they, in that interaction that we have with them, they're putting up their best show. And when they go and meet with their potential employer, they're again putting up their best show.
Yeah. So the signs don't come early? Are there early signs that we can detect?
Well, I don't know. Maybe this will be a little bit controversial, but I don't think people is toxic by birth, by nature. I believe we become toxic by the context, right? So I believe, and I've seen it. I've seen how somebody very toxic suddenly becomes the most positive person in the room. So I think it's the environment that can cause, and I have seen how often the most toxic people in a workplace, the negative, the ones that complain the most, everything is, oh no, and they are, creating rumors, often is people who were very engaged, but they feel like backstab, or they feel betrayed by the company or mistreated, and then they turn
into toxic.
Toxic.
That's so interesting.
Yes.
So you cannot enter it doesn't mean you have to enter an organization toxic. You can actually become it from the organization.
Yes.
And how would you stop that? Like what you just mentioned HR. What would they need to do to protect that sacred? I mean, I feel GIG has a very positive environment. You even said it when you walked in.
Yes, you can look.
Thank you, Robyn.
It's very sacred. It's very sacred. And so, how do we protect that?
You're totally right. I visit more than 500 companies in my life, and I always say I can know about the culture by sitting in reception. I often get early to the place, and I sit, and how people interact around me without knowing who I am, it tells me a great deal about how that culture is. So I believe the toxicity is in the air.
Yeah, you mentioned it before we said in that it was the smell.
Yeah,
you could smell toxic.
You can smell toxic. And here you can see, that is so welcoming, and especially it contrasts with the outside. I was like, what? Oh my God, this is amazing. So, but answering your question, what companies can do, the first thing is to address that. And it's like anything in life. If you have a problem, the first step is to acknowledge you have a problem, not try to cover it. I believe many, not only HR, but many directors know their workplaces are toxic.
And do people know they're toxic? I mean, is there
that's a good
self-awareness?
question. Partly, I think if you have self-awareness, you will realize, however, when you are under stress and you are in a situation, you may not know you are being toxic. And then you may decide to leave. But probably, Osama, you have more insights about if people know are toxic.
I mean, when it comes to the leadership, the management, the leadership, I personally think there is a lack of self-awareness.
Yes.
Because if that awareness was there, we wouldn't be having what we have right now, which is that global pandemic. Yes. Because, I mean, look, who would, at leadership level, who would want the exact phenomena that you just talked about, that the best people leave, the worst people you fire, what are you left with?
Yeah.
Right? So...
the poison. That's just going to stay.
The poison. Yeah.
So I think there is that self-awareness is lacking.
It's lacking.
Yeah.
And how would you approach someone? So let's say I knew someone was toxic in the business.
Yeah.
Where do I go?
Well, I think when somebody is toxic, one of the first interventions you can do is to show them. I remember this guy, Paco, in Spain, Paco.
Love the name.
And he was he was working in a multinational company, but they had a factory, and they went through restructuring, and it was very radical because they were losing lots of money. They were losing market because a competitor, basically they have a patent and it expires, and then in China they create the same product. So it was 3 years losing money, and this new CEO came to fix it or close it. So the first thing was fire lots of people, 30%. Yeah, because they were drowning money anyway. So with the people who stayed, he did a survey. He said, I'm going to do a survey. Imagine the survey was like, oh my God, the survey is terrible. Everybody's very unhappy.
Because they were honest.
They were honest. And then we did some focus groups, and anyway, but this Paco, I got distracted. This Paco, in the survey of his group, people were saying this, manager of the factory, he's terrible, he's very toxic. In fact, they say toxic. People were crying in the bathrooms, the ladies. It was a factory. No. It was very upsetting. And then I said, but he was very good at his job. He was very good.
That's often the case.
That's often the case.
Right.
That's why I'm bringing it up. The results were okay. However, when you look closely, there were some things. Anyway, they said, can you speak to him? What can we do? And I said, okay, I'm going to show him the results, because the survey had open questions. And I show him. I see it. I did a coaching session with him. And he was so upset. He said, I've been 30 years here and nobody has told me this. Why? I don't want my team crying. What am I doing, Montserrat? Please help me. And I explained, listen, I know you have good intentions, but you have to learn about the impact of your actions. You are a leader. You are not just a personal contributor. Every action is magnified. So you need to make sure. And only seeing those results is shifting. And the next survey, all those problems were fixed. because he realized he was having an impact. And often,
Oh.
many companies, probably you know, they want to do a survey when they are good. Come on.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like, I'm going to the doctor when I'm healthy. Hey, doctor, I'm healthy. Excuse me, no. You want to do, in this case, a survey to tell you where are your pain points. And if the pain point is this person is doing this, tell him. However, you have to do it in the right way. I've done so many training for leaders. And as you say, it's like, you say, this self-awareness or psychological safety. Oh, yeah, I do it. No, you don't. It's like, so you have to treat with respect because leaders don't know how to deal with this, you know, because what I say, they are equipped to manage. And manage is to manage what exists. But if you are asking them to create something new, that's why we have the pandemic, because they can't, they lack the skills. So they become toxic themselves because they are stressed. Sometimes that they are in panic mode.
Okay, and they're creating their own toxic environment that they're living in, and they start recruiting everyone in it.
Yes.
Oh, that's so sad. That he must have been really shocked. I mean, I didn't expect that story to end like that. Usually, it's
He was
zero
positive.
self-awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you usually find positive people after being told? I mean, it was told with kindness. You said
Yeah,
the
it was
approach,
told with
right?
kindness. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was told with kindness, and it was given the opportunity, you know. And also, he was toxic in the way he spoke to people. He had like a short temper, and that he could fix because he understood that short temper will cause these things. But other stuff, he was a good leader, you know. He cared about people in his own way.
Oh.
So you have to. That's the first things. I mean, being leader is hard. Being a manager, right?
But I think, so I had this very early on in my career, and without taking names, so I was working for a company. We had a string of resignations, one after the other, and HR then called a session. It was called a heart-to-heart session.
Heart to heart?
Yes.
Heart to heart.
Heart-to-heart, right? In which the whole, I think several departments were called, and then it was open forum. Guys, please, come out with whatever is bothering you because we can't have this happening or continuing. And there was a lot of whispering going on, and obviously these things are going to reach HR,
Yes.
right? And they said, this is the forum, come out with it. Of course, initially it was very quiet and no one wanted to talk because
They're worried.
you don't want to be, because it was a multinational, and you don't want to be in that situation where you're the one who speaks up and gets into trouble.
course.
So, but gradually the momentum, the session picked up, the momentum picked up, people started coming, and then they really gave it to the leaders. They really gave it to
came
the
out
leaders.
full throttle.
They came out full throttle. But I think, the thing that was coming out is, look, we can take initiatives to improve the situation, but it was really about, how do you treat people on a daily basis?
Yes.
Yeah, those small things that companies do as token gestures?
Yes.
That, okay, look, we've done this to address it. But it's about the daily interaction, the daily treatment
Yes.
that makes all the difference.
Yes. And think about who do you interact with when you're an employee? With your line manager, with your team. And that's why HR can play a role in doing certain activities, but they are the leaders and the teams who need to have the control and the empowerment to really deal with this. And the issue is precisely that managers and leaders, we are not ready to do that. And then also we don't create the spaces to talk about this. So people bottle up. There are not spaces to talk with your team, with your line manager about this, and then at the end you explode. And if, as I said, if you are a competent and a talent, high potential talent, you will leave because you will find a better offer.
Just following on from that point, when you mentioned about that person being in the company for 30 years.
Yes.
Because I feel that it's easier when there's someone who has been in the company for a long time and is expected to be there for a further longer time, versus in multinationals where assignments are like, a year and a half to 2 to 3 years.
Yes.
And this person is like, you know what, I'm just going to quickly try to get the results as a manager, not a keep I'm good at what I do. I'm going to push, get my results, and then move on. And then when it falls apart, because of all the issues like mental health and burnout and whatever, all these issues that we eventually come across, he or she is already gone.
So it's not his problem anymore.
And now it's somebody else who's having to deal with it.
Yes, that's a very good point, and also it comes, or we need to pay attention of how we measure the success. How we measure the success of certain leaders, because the culture is the responsibility of the leaders. Culture is not HR doing a values campaign. Culture is how we do things here, around here. You know, and what is the smell, the feeling you have, and that is the responsibility of leaders mainly, and everybody's. So you should, you're leaving, but how is the culture? It's part of your responsibility to nurture that culture.
So everyone's responsible. There's a trend going around in terms of quiet quitting.
Oh, yes.
Is that, how do you know someone's quiet quitting? What are the signs that someone is about to leave?
Well, I think you can tell when people, but again, for instance, in HR at that level, probably you cannot see that. It has to be the leader. Suddenly that person is quiet. Suddenly that person is not telling you ideas. But if you think about it, many people decide to leave when they try. They try to tell you they are unhappy, but are you ready to listen to them? You know. So I think the quiet quitting often comes when people feel nobody cares about them. You know. I think
they distance themselves and they become very isolated.
Yes. I think
which is physically noticeable. I would assume that they're kind of detaching themselves from the work and everyone.
Yes, probably in an online context that is less evident or less obvious, you know, because you don't see people.
It's not tangible.
But you can also tell, you know, if the person doesn't put the camera or how is. I think it's a perception, but that is not taught in business school, in an MBA or in a.
It's not.
It's
not taught.
But it's
for
not
sure.
taught, and it's very hard. I mean. Learning about finance, come on, it's super easy. I have an MBA. It's not that difficult. Accounting,
straightforward. I think humans are very. However, maths is straightforward.
Exactly. However, how you learn about to motivate, how to create psychological safety, how to create the environment so people, when they are not happy, they tell you. Because we talk a lot about these concepts, but mindsets.
You know, psychological safety. I mean, it's such a. It's difficult because sometimes, especially again in very large companies, in global companies, even the country manager of a particular country or even the region, they don't even know about their own job, let alone making you feel psychologically safe.
Yeah.
And you know, at times, especially, I mean, I don't know what's going on in the last 10, 15 years. I mean, 10 years, I would say. So since 2015, every company's restructuring after every 2 years.
Yeah.
And imagine what that does to psychological safety. And you know what happens? The leader themselves is saying, when someone asks them, when an employee asks for assurance about what's going to happen to me, and the leader says, "I don't know what's going to happen to myself."
Oh, you hear that a lot out here.
This happens. It's with every global company, and it's because of this whole restructuring thing that's happening every 2 years.
Yeah, but I think I would like to, and thinking about what we were discussing with Robyn. I think one of the issues, precisely going back, is how do you know a manager is a good manager or a bad manager, toxic manager or not, or toxic leader. And one of the issues is we talk about psychological safety or we talk about trust, but what we really need, the first thing, is hope. I mean, we talk about, like in Great Place to Work, we measure trust, okay, but trust is believing you say what you say we're going to do, and we do. Walk the talk. Mm-hmm. But you have to do the talk, and you have to create a vision of the future. And the problem, again, and maybe I'm repeating myself, but that's a key message. If you are a leader, if you're a manager and you have an MBA, you have to start learning to lead. And that's very difficult for certain professions, engineers, IT people, because we are not framed to understand people. And what we are learned, or we are taught to do, is how to manage the day-to-day, the how, but not how to give a vision to people. Okay, we don't know nothing. We're going to have to be restructuring every 2 years. But it's nothing we can do. We have to prepare people for this changeability. How you create people ready to change. And how is, not with the how, but with the why. A little bit, not the Simon Sinek, why we're doing this, not. Why are we, where are we going? As a leader, you have to be able to create a vision.
So there's transparency in what you're doing in direction?
Yes.
Okay.
And maybe it's, listen, guys, we don't know, but we have to get ready to change, be ready to change, because we are losing market, because this we can see there is a trend. So just give them a vision, and to get anything, you will know your business. And just make people enthusiastic, because if people know where they're going and why they are going, they will be able to tolerate any how we're getting there.
And I love when you said enthusiasm.
Yes.
Being enthusiastic, because a lot of people, I mean, the first thing they do, resistant to change.
Yes.
Something's changing.
Yes.
It's going to disrupt my everyday. It's overwhelming me. But if you can embrace it positively and say,
Yes.
we're all in it together. We're
Yes.
all in this mess.
Because they don't...
Let's just at least go together in the same direction.
Exactly. And we're not sure, but together we will get there. And everybody can explain it in their own way. But if you make people hopeful, they will not be hopeless or helpless. They will be like, ready. Okay, I trust you. You're going to guide me there, and together we will get there. And I think there is a lack of that. There is too much scarcity. Leaders are restructuring. Why we think we are restructuring? We are restructuring why? Because we want to reduce cost. But that's okay. But, why you don't think about increasing the top line? How can you create more revenue? Not how you can cut corners. That's very cheap management, bad management. But how you make the top line bigger. And that's, you need your team. Hey, guys, we have to do this here. How do we do it? Bring them together. And I think that's one of the things missing. And that creates toxicity, because if they don't know something, they are not sharing, people know you're holding back. Why are you not telling me? You're going to be fired, and why? I mean, in that case, I shared before, the CEO said, listen, I'm so sorry I have to fire all these people, but I didn't have an option. There were people from factories, he explained it. Imagine you are investing money and the bank does, he explained in their words to understand. And he said, listen, I want to make this company better so not all of you lose your jobs. I want everybody to maintain their job, and this is what it takes. And we involve everybody in designing some sort of way of working together.
Right. And it's the delivery, right? You said the kindness. Yes. I mean, at the end of the day, everyone's going to feel not great losing their job.
No.
But if it can be done in a nice way.
Yes.
Or understandable way.
Yes.
Rather than always being left confused and why did you get...
Exactly. I think that's kindness is always, a no-brainer, I think so.
You seem very passionate about leadership. You've written a book on who changes wins.
Yeah.
Why have you gotten into what you do today? What's your why?
Look, my why is, I grew up believing, I saw my dad, in the 80s in Spain when he had a job. He was terrible, always complaining. He's a carpenter, right? But and when he didn't have a job, oh my God, I don't have a job. So I grew up fascinated by this work world that can make people very unhappy. And I guess that's why I studied psychology. And I believe profoundly, and I've seen it, in Mexico, in developing countries, that work is the only way to grow and have prosperity in your life as a person or as an organization. So work has the potential to create a better world. But the way we've been doing work, it hasn't been the most optimal. When we look at how many people, the last results of Gallup, only less than 2 out of 10 people are engaged at work.
Yeah, shocking. I'm honestly...
Yeah, or the other day, a recent report from Gallup say the most important attribute or characteristic of a leader is hope. Hope. People need to have not only trust in the leaders, but hope in that the leaders will lead them. Hopefully, hope at the end of the day is being positive about the result.
Yes,
and that's the thing that's most lacking, right?
Yeah, the hope. You said 2 out of 10 people?
In the last report from Gallup, only 2 out of 10 people are engaged at work. And 80% are not engaged.
And they're just dragging their feet to make money?
Yes, well, I don't think people want to drag their feet, but they feel disengaged because the relationship between people and companies it needs to be
It's a job.
shift. Yeah,
Yeah.
it needs to be a shift because it has become very transactional. You know, HR has been giving perks and nice things, but that doesn't motivate people, and that's nothing new. Hertzberg talk about it. You know, what motivates people is the control, the autonomy, being part of something. But I think with the movements and part mea culpa, right? Because Great Place to Work, we start measuring how many HR policies you have, what do you do for your people, and that has confused. I mean, some companies in the US are stopping perks. They don't give more benefits because what people want is a culture.
Oh, that's super interesting. You also, I know that you mentioned when we spoke earlier that you
Yeah.
co-founded Great Place to Work in Europe.
Yes.
And I know that we see that stamp everywhere, right? The
Yes.
Great Place to
Yeah.
Work. And
Yes.
does that hold credibility? What does...
That's a long story, but yeah, I was part of the team in Europe in 2005 when it wasn't in Europe, so it was a grant, and at the time it was. That's why I joined it, because it was how can we make work great, right? But it took a subtle shift into what do you give your people, and think about it. If you are with me in this relationship because what I give you, it's very transactional. But people is gonna forget what you give them. It's gonna forget what you say, but they are never gonna forget how you treat them. And that's the culture. How a smell in the
Yes.
office. How did you feel when you receive an email? You know, the emails carry energy, and energy, nothing metaphysical. Only you notice how people is, in how they write, in how. So I think Great Place to Work lost the point, and it's a model. Sorry to say that is based in the 80s. You know, and trust. So it's a great model, but it has made companies focus too much on what you give people. And it's not about what you give, it's how you treat them. You said it, Osama. How you treat them in the day-to-day, how you treat them since they see an advert in LinkedIn to when they leave the company. It says a lot.
The
Not
exit, right? That's very important.
The exit. It says a lot because it leaves a bad taste, you know. And now everybody can know those things.
And now, the reason for this pandemic, obviously there's one which is that more and more companies are becoming very bottom line focused, rather than, as you said, trying to increase the top line. The bottom line will just come, right?
Yes.
But is it also a shift in mindset? Like, for example, so my father-in-law. So when I was in the work a couple of decades ago, I spoke to I was working, and my father-in-law, had not yet retired.
Okay.
And I was just telling him that, you know what, I'm not really enjoying what I do. And I remember what he said to me. He said, you get paid very well. You're living a nice life. What is enjoyment? It was not even a concept. It was basically you work for money. You work to live a livelihood so that you can provide for your family, for your relatives, etc. And that was it. But now you see this whole generation of, let's say millennials or even Gen X who listen to Steve Jobs or Simon Sinek talk about that you should enjoy what you do.
Yeah.
So is that the reason? Is there a mindset shift? Or is it that we're just not producing great leaders anymore?
Well, I think there is a mindset shift, but I also think the model of managers we've been created is becoming obsolete, and because we live at the time where we have more change than ever, and the depth of change is deeper than ever. The width of change is wider than ever, and the speed. The old model is just unable to cope. So I think it's obsolete, and I believe in those circumstances of so many change, uncertainty, fear, insecurity, trust is lower than ever. I mean, Edelman, they do a trust barometer, and I believe now the trust of people in companies is 30%. 70% of people don't trust the companies, let alone government. So that is proving that the model is obsolete. So we need to create another model of leadership, work, and organizations, because Generation Z, okay, maybe our parents, the enjoyment work was like, what? This is work. This is torture, Put up with it in the old times.
You're stuck with it. Yeah.
Exactly. How you can... I remember when I started working in Inditex, I was in HR. I did interviews at the end of the 90s, beginning of the 2000s. If people asked me too many questions, I was like, no, I'm not hiring this one. He's asking too many questions, right? It's just like, no, I hear the questions. I ask the questions. I'm in HR. Remember those times?
Yeah.
And now that has shifted. And people, young people, Generation Z, and, Alpha, I believe, is the next
Yes, the
coming
next
up.
one.
Which is not the right name for them, but
no,
that's okay.
it's true. It's true. And my son, they don't. I have a Z and the Alpha one. Or he doesn't like the name, but they are not. They look for enjoyment, enjoyment, and why am I doing this? Even my kids are gifted, so they are very, and they always ask like, why I'm learning this. I mean, we have to spend time telling them why is, maths, algorithms, logarithms important for what? Why is this? That why and the reason is super important for them. So it's beyond enjoyment, it's meaning.
It's a purposeful living, I think.
Purposeful, yeah.
There's a whole push towards that, especially with Gen Z.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
How do you see, the Gen Z and the big gap between management? There seems to be a lot of headbutting. So back in the days when you're being hired, you used to aspire to want to
Yes.
work for specific leaders. I mean, I
Yes.
was like, oh, great.
Robyn,
Lots
you're
to
big
learn
on
from.
that, right? For you, it was all about leadership,
It's
right?
all about leadership, yeah, and that's what got me into personal branding. Because
Yes.
like, why are we working for big corporations when it's the leaders that make all the difference
Yes.
every day?
Yes.
But Gen Z aren't really looking up to leaders as much. They're more looking aligned with their purpose. So that's shift that also that we're seeing. So what's advice in terms of managing that? And if I was a Gen Z, what advice would you give a Gen Z going into a corporation?
Where I think Gen Z they look for leaders who can inspire them or who can give them a vision of what is going to take them what they are doing, which we also value, as you say, is your leader that tells you, hey, we're going to do this, but we're going to change the world, I remember when I worked at Inditex before we talk about fast fashion, and we knew we were doing something great, and you were part of something. That purpose you don't have to hire a Simon Sinek to tell you what is your purpose. You just need to find it. Every organization know. And I think that we forget. Companies forget. And I think Generation Z is reminding us what we all want. Because you're saying, I'm Generation X.
Yeah.
So I want that. You want somebody that can not motivate you, because at the end your motivation is yours and you have to be protagonist of your own. But you want a leader that can create that future and you're part of it.
Yeah.
You want to be...
I'm completely with that. Like, if you're both on the same path and you're reaching the same goal and you're on the same purpose, it's just
Yes.
fluidly.
Yes.
It fluidly works.
And actually, going back to one data point from Great Place to Work, because Great Place to Work, the model measures trust, and you measure how much you trust the organization, how much you trust your leaders, and how much you trust your colleagues, right? It's a great model. And what we notice is when you don't trust your organization, then you go to your leaders. So low trust in the organization means, okay, I have my leaders to trust and to guide me. But if that is low, then you go to your colleagues. Then, camaraderie is important.
Yeah. Which can also go negative, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Which
it can be
you've
negative, but it can be positive where you're saying we are on this together.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
However, that is not sustainable. At the end, the leaders are irreplaceable. You need leaders that can not be toxic, because being toxic is being scarce. I mean, you're not going to get good results with a scarcity mindset. You need prosperity mindset.
Yeah.
You need to see, how can I create more? Not how can I cut less. At the end, cutting corners always never works out at the end. You need to create top line, right? And then the bottom line will grow too. But it's different mindset, I think.
Absolutely. Speaking of Gen Z, and something that's trending now, they've made it very, let's say, a trend, and others have caught, I think even the millennials, Gen X have caught on to it, that this is the problem of narcissists. Okay. And it's almost like, I mean, if you were to speak to Gen Z, it's almost as if everybody around is a narcissist. Is it that bad, or is it just, false labeling, exaggeration? But I mean, yes, it seems to be something that's very common.
So what you're saying, let me double check. That Generation Z is saying that they are other narcissist people. They are not. So they are referring to their surroundings, right?
I mean, there's an employee, Gen Z, was actually reading a book.
Yes.
Surrounded by narcissists.
Yes.
And that got me thinking, am I one as well?
Oh, you're not.
So yeah, just wanted to.
I think part of that is that now there is too much information, a little bit woke sometimes, not informed, people writing books to get popular, and misusing certain words. I mean, narcissism is a serious personality disorder that can cause lots of damage. However, it is true that many of the managers we have created, they have very big egos, which will fall in the same category. And it's people, when you hear them talk, it's all about the I. And apparently they didn't get the memo of there is no I in team, right?
Yeah.
And then,
but there's a me.
Exactly. There is a me.
I had to throw that in.
But that is true. I think Generation Z they are team players, right? And they play games. For instance, my son plays games, video games. So they are more team players. And often they don't want to be in the spotlight. And probably you have some Gen Z that they want to be in the spotlight. But I do believe in the corporate world, unfortunately, those who stayed in the middle, many of them have developed certain narcissistic traits because it has been, we have the up or out in performance development, the 9 boxes, and then you have to be up or out. So it forces you to be too competitive with others, too much about you. Look what I've done. And, Microsoft have popularized the up or out. Or you were in the top.
What, can you explain the up or out?
Yes, the 9 boxes is how you measure performance. And then you classify people in the 9 boxes. And the top one is high potential and high performance.
Okay.
And you will be there or you will be fired.
It's a bit overwhelming.
That was a culture on many multinationals, that in the quadrants you will be there. And Microsoft was famous for that many years ago, before Satya Nadella. And he has talked about psychopaths and leadership, because when he arrived, he says, listen, this culture is going to change, and we are removing this up or out, this performance, this individualistic culture that where narcissistic flourish. And we are going to replace it with growth mindset. And before that, Microsoft was losing competitiveness. They will have worse results. And if we have now a PowerPoint, we could see how since he arrived to Microsoft is out the charts now. They outperform the competition because he changed the mindset. He removed this individualistic culture and he promoted growth mindset. In growth mindset, by definition, you are not narcissistic. You are a team player. You enjoy when others win, and we...
That's infinite mindset, right? Very, very...
Yeah.
It's the same concept.
Yes.
So with narcissism, how would you know... How would you know that someone is a narcissist? Is it something like a toxic person? Is it something that you're born with, or is it something that's created?
Well, I think some
people... Do we create monsters?
Well, I think some people had more tendencies. At the end of the day, personality, that's why I say there are trends. And I believe nothing is fixed. You can, myself, when I was in my 30s and I was an HR director before 30, I was more narcissistic than I am now. And I have bigger ego because I was insecure. So many insecurities, if not with self-awareness, they become exaggerations and your ego gets bigger, right? But
thank you for sharing that. I mean, you said that so fluently and so comfortable that you were self-aware. Yeah. Like your category.
I remember in HR, you could hire and fire people. You're very powerful and you're young. So I was much more arrogant. Now sometimes I feel ashamed, but then I can tell people how not to be. But so I believe you are not narcissistic or not. It's your personality, and personality is fluid. You can change.
And what's a red flag?
A red flag is when you go to sleep and you are not happy. It's something that it doesn't make you happy. For you as a person, that self-awareness, deep down, you know it, and then you do toxic behaviors to yourself, destructive behaviors. You eat too much, you do other things too much, things are not good, you treat yourself badly, you speak badly to you.
So that's
to
a red
others.
flag if you're a narcissist, do you mean?
Anything, anybody toxic.
In general, anything toxic when you go to
Well,
bed and don't feel good. But if you're going into a workplace,
Yeah.
what's a red flag of someone that's narcissist before we label them?
Well, when somebody talks too much about themselves, I think that's a red flag. When
Taking credit?
Yes, taking too much.
Taking credit is a red flag.
When you hear a leader, for me, saying, "Oh, I did this," for me, a red flag is I instead of we. That's organizations. Yeah, that's an instant red flag.
Going to keep eyes and ears for you.
No, of course, if
Open
you are
to-
talking about something you're doing in one-to-one, but
No, I love that analogy. It's very true.
Yeah.
Because it's either you instantly feel that it was done with a team,
Yes.
which it most definitely probably was,
Yes.
or you're just putting yourself at the forefront.
Yes, and as a leader, as a real leader, you have to take it on the chin for your team. I mean, you are accountable for your team, and if your team do a mistake, you cannot throw them under the bus because you're throwing yourself. So as a leader, really, there is no I. It's your team. When the team fails, is your fault, and when they win, is their win. Like a coach in football, right?
That is so rare.
You know, I
Robyn,
had
you-
great leaders. No, I had great leaders, to be honest. I had one extremely bad one. Extremely bad.
We
but
all have one of
We all
those.
have. It's a story, which is I'm grateful for. I have a really awful story. But in general, I had really
what's the
great...
story?
We'll get to it in a minute. it was a female leader that took all my credit.
Yeah.
And then when I tried to change departments, she blocked me and wouldn't let me because she needed me in her team.
Yes.
And then I confronted her. Yeah, I confronted her, and I told her like, I'm.
And what happened?
I had to stay with her. I had to stay under a team. I wasn't able to shift departments at all.
But did she change? When you gave her that feedback, when you confronted her,
I confronted her, and what was even worse, I confronted her because she was talking about me in Arabic to other people, and I understood Arabic. So in the moment, she wasn't just talking about me; she was talking about the whole team.
Yeah.
She was just an awful person. And I confronted her in our performance review. And I said, I'm just going to let you know that I understand Arabic. I know exactly what you said, and I know exactly what you said about the whole team. She was like, I go, but I understand that you're under pressure and that, I'm not a threat to you. I don't want your job.
Yeah.
My success is your success and vice versa.
Yes.
So I go, just either we're going to work together or we're just going to end up headbutting. I was very
Yes.
transparent with her about the situation. And she was obviously startled because she's not used to people confronting her.
Yes.
So then I just had to figure out a balancing relationship with her.
Did it bring about a change post that conversation, or did she just stay set in her ways?
She just stayed set in her ways, and everyone would tell me what she'd be talking about. However, she's talking about everyone. It wasn't just me. So,
Yeah.
that was my
There's
bad
also-
experience.
Yeah.
It reminds me of another instance. So, friend of mine has been a client, has been a candidate, very, very senior, talented person, professional in HR.
Yeah.
And she told me about, very politically motivated narcissistic behavior, or narcissistic abuse rather, where
That's heavy.
one
Yeah.
of her managers, who was actually, I think, the CHRO of the company, it was strong. So in HR, look, you don't have to be the best in numbers. You have to be. You can make it up with being good in a lot of other things.
Yes.
But this particular CHRO, VPHR, was very strong in numbers, and then she would use that, very strong in numbers and mental math, and use that as like a card to play in meetings to put down,
To belittle.
to belittle
That's so
the people
nice.
below her, so including her.
That's not
and
nice
it would
at
be
all.
like, you don't even know this? You're not on top of your numbers.
Yeah.
Publicly
right?
doing it?
Publicly doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, one-to-one, like really rash, and harsh. And then also in meetings, just to show that I am the alpha.
Yeah, but
right?
that exactly, that will be per se, not necessarily narcissistic totally, but of course it's a toxic leadership. Because at the end of the day, as a leader, how does it benefit you? It's because of this mindset of divide and you will win. Make your team as a leader. That's the shift we have to make. And it's a gift from Gen Z. That we have to understand that dividing, we are never going to win. And that, leaders, we have to get a more prosperity mindset, multiplying and making your team better. I mean, when your team, I'm so proud to say, as a leader, I led teams of 200 people and 10% of them promoted. When I left, now they are all better than when I was there. That's the best. And it all comes.
Amazing?
Yeah.
No.
Wow.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
And because when I left my last job, I make sure everybody was in the right promotion path. And that, for me, was the best present I could have. To see, and I tell that my children, if people you are with, they don't multiply you, they don't make you feel better, they are dividing you. And that is not a good leader. But what I was going to say, a narcissistic will be sometimes even more manipulative, and what we need now, there are leaders that they get the pyramid turned around. And the team is not to serve you as a leader. That's over. If you still believe in that, you're obsolete. As a person, as a leader, as an employee, now we need people and leaders that serve their team. Because you as a leader, that leader, she was not that good at maths as she thought. Because, she cannot control everybody. And she controlling everything, she can impact 100, whatever. But if you get all your 100 people positively impacting the rest, you're multiplied as a leader, serving your team. Leaders should not be doing anything else but making sure the team can do the job amazingly.
I love your analogy as well. To multiply, not divide.
Exactly. To multiply, not divide. And you serving your employees as it's the servant leadership.
I had a leader, the best line a leader's ever told me. I was stepping in from a director into head of marketing for the first time. And I looked at him thinking, I'm not qualified. I mean, no one's qualified getting into any role above the next one, to be fair.
Yeah.
And he looked at me, he's like, don't worry, I give you permission to fail.
Exactly.
And till today, I haven't forgot that.
Exactly.
And that's what I try to pass down because he gave me the most safest environment ever. But he said, make the mistake once, amazing. Make it twice, Robyn.
Yeah. But Robyn, that is psychological safety. Often we think psychological safety is people talking about their problems. No, psychological safety is that you have permission to fail. You have permission to be vulnerable. You have permission to be you. Because otherwise, if you are not you, you are dividing yourself and you're never going to perform fully because your energy is invested in repressing this part, not saying that. That's why the worst teams, the most toxic, is the teams that they look up to the leader to see what to do, instead of serving their customers, serving the bottom line or the top line, making sure they are doing the best. They are people just looking, how is the leader today? And that's
waiting for them to leave before you can leave the office.
Exactly.
I think that's the worst
Exactly. You can say, how is the leader today? Don't tell them this problem. Come on. Come on. Or group thinking. Group thinking is the worst. When everybody's thinking the same, no one's thinking. I mean, if you have a team that is not able to tell you what is not working, what are the problems, which mistakes are, you're never going to improve, and then you're never going to grow fully as a company. You're never going to be prosperous and make lots of money, I think.
Yeah.
Love it.
Coming to improving workplace culture, right? So, and one of the things that is facing a lot of companies, especially in the post-COVID era, is that employees are becoming very resistant to coming to the office. And it's the employees who are going to they have a responsibility as well to form part of the culture or the culture.
Yeah.
how do you see this? I mean, is this and we've had Elon Musk talk about that. People need to be doing, I think, 40-hour weeks in the office.
Yeah.
Anything less is not acceptable. But is there a balance? Is there, what's your recommendation?
My recommendation is people, they need to have, and I think now that we have AI, we have agents multiplying you and helping you, we need to give people more autonomy, not less. And let's see how he develops his philosophy. But if you treat people like children, they will behave like children. If you treat them like robots, they will behave like robots. But if you give them responsibility, you give them the autonomy to have control, they will manage everything much better. And they will know we have a shared vision, shared hope, and then we will develop the way to get there in a safe way. So I disagree totally with his view. I'm sorry, I can disagree with Elon Musk in that.
The one thing.
One thing. I'm much poorer than him, of course, but it doesn't mean I don't think he's right, because you cannot force people to do a good job. You cannot say, hey, motivate you. Come on. No, people do a good job. People have the power to do very bad job, not too bad, but not too good, or excellent job. And in the world we live in, that is up to people. And it was this survey I came across once, nothing scientific, not academic. I usually don't like these things. I'm very, academic. I like to check my sources. But this one was one of these surveys somebody has done, I don't know, many years ago, in Facebook, I think, and have asked people, have you ever done something at work badly, a mistake, something bad on purpose?
Oh.
80% of the people say, well, you guess, yes or not?
Yes?
80%.
I don't know. I'm just guessing
Yes.
for theatrics.
80% of the people did something badly at work on purposely.
Why?
And the reason?
Oh.
As a revenge to their bosses.
Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Am I the only one shocked? I just guessed 80 because I was...
Because people, when
left wing.
For me, the definition of engagement is doing a good job when nobody sees you. And when nobody's looking is when you really can do a bad job, a very good job. And if you force people against their will to do something they don't want to do, what is going to happen? When you're not looking, 80% of people will choose to do badly too. Control what they can, because that is a toxic behavior, but it's induced by a system that is removing all what they can control. And if you remove any ability to control anything, people is going to be hopeless. And in that place, they're going to be, stress, burnout, and from there, nothing good grows. That's my opinion.
The burnout is quite popular. I think I don't know if it's still happening, but there's this whole, it's still
burnout
happening.
is a thing.
There's a whole phase of everyone being burnt out.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a theory that's the immense consumption of social media, is causing that. What's your view on this? Is that a reason for an increased amount of burnout, anxiety, and?
In my opinion, it's neuroscientifically based. I've been researching this for the last 3 years before I came here. The reason why we have more mental health than ever, I believe 70% of people is suffering or will suffer stress or some mental health problems, is due to the fact that social media, but also the world is so uncertain. In our parents' time, you knew you have your job for 30 years, you have your house, your car. All that is no longer valid. So people is facing a future that is very uncertain. Hence, they cannot control. Everything is controlled for you, and that lack of control creates what the psychologists name learned helplessness. But now, neuroscience has shown that we don't learn that we are helpless. When we feel overwhelmed by the environment, an area of our brain called dorsal raphe nucleus activates and makes you feel helpless, frozen. You do nothing. You can't take any decision. You feel blocked. You feel like
a paralysis?
Yeah, like a paralysis, because your body is trying to protect you from that much change, which is a threat. And the only way to turn off that area of your brain is with the feeling of control and hope. The last book of Martin Seligman, the father of positive psychology, is called The Circuit of Hope, because helplessness is not learned. It's logically activated when you feel overwhelmed before cortisol, which is the stress. And it releases anxiety. And the only way to turn it off, because it's in a very old area of our brain, is with the feeling there is hope. It's something you can do to escape that threat.
So how do you go get hope? Because if you have all of these feelings, how do you actively go find hope?
The way, in my opinion, is to focus your attention in what you can control. They will be, and that's why workplaces are I'm going to take all the control from you. It's not going to work, because if you give autonomy and a little bit of control to people, they can use that to really feel the hope. And if the leader is saying, listen, we don't know what's going to happen, but we are in this, let's do it. The person will say, okay, I'm going to focus in this. So in your life, you can focus not in the million things that are not working, the toxicity, the bad news. You can focus in, what can I do now? I can be kind to this person. I can enjoy this. Because our attention by default goes to the toxic, to the negativity.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And we have to bring it back to the positive. I go in Sharjah, there's lots of traffic. Every morning going to HCT, I can say, oh my God, I'm going to die in this traffic. Look at this driving in the roundabout. Yeah. What is this? Especially
it's a common problem right now in Dubai.
As Europeans, roundabouts are sacred. We drive them very well. And he's like, oh my God. Yes. But I can say every car I irritated, look at this. Or I can say, you know what? Inshallah. let's go and do it. And it's fine. I'm going to focus in what I can control. I'm going to listen to the music I like. I'm going to think positively. But it requires an effort. That's why we cannot be victims of our thoughts.
Yeah.
We have to be protagonists. We have to say, you know what, my attention can go in, how horrible is this? Or, how beautiful we met here, Robyn, through LinkedIn.
Yes,
amazingly.
Amazing.
And I'm so happy to be here. And that's
we are too.
Great. And but I have to focus, because otherwise my mind will go, is it going to be interesting for your audience? Am I doing a good job? Maybe not. Maybe they regret having invited me. And I have to say, no,
The imposter syndrome, is that part of imposter syndrome?
A little bit, yeah. And you have to, but we are not victims of the imposter syndrome. We can choose and say, you know what, my attention, I'm going to focus in this. I teach my students, pay attention, because pay means attention is expensive. So you choose where to focus your attention, scrolling in the negative or in the positive.
Speaking of attention, and now you have, you have so many people being diagnosed or self-diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, and it's like, I can't concentrate, I can't pay attention. It's so common now. So is that correct diagnosis, or is that?
That is a very interesting topic, and I will say two things. First of all, the person who invented that syndrome, he said before he died, I don't know if he's dead, but he said, listen, this is not a sickness. This is a syndrome. And a syndrome is when some symptoms, not causes, symptoms come together and we cannot explain. But it doesn't mean we live in a time where, again, we are positioned as victims. And we feel very comfortable. Oh, you know what? I have ADC, and I'm a victim of that. It's very easy to say that. But that's a toxic behavior to protect yourself. Sometimes it will, but it's a symptom of our times too, that we are exposed to many changes, to many scrolling. So it is an effort to pay attention and to focus. So I'm not a fan of labeling like this, because it puts you as a victim of yourself, and that's nothing worse than that, because it makes you toxic and it makes you paralyzed and it doesn't make you prosper. We have to focus in what we are protagonists of our lives, And I love this. I don't know if you have read the book Man in Search of Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Have you, Summer? You will now.
I will now.
It's a very classic book. It's very old. It's the first book at university when I studied psychology. But basically, Viktor Frankl, he survived concentration camp, and he developed this logotherapy. And basically, he said, listen, when It's nothing you can control, like that experience, but it's always something you can control. And it's what it is between the stimulus and the response you give. That space between what you experience and how you react is your choice. So we always have a choice how to behave.
And to be conscious of that choice.
Exactly. Like what we're saying, I can go in the car and every morning get stressed. Oh my God, I'm hopeless because there's nothing I can do with the traffic. No, it's something I can do. Can I change the traffic? No. Can I change my attitude? And this is a topic everybody talks. You can change your attitude, but it's true, you know. And neurologically, ADH, it is not a syndrome in your brain always, you know. It's a characteristic, so it's a symptom. Of course, you cannot concentrate, but try. Learn, you know, and I'm talking about it. We are neurodiverse in my family because we have higher IQs and these high sensitivity people, but we are not victims of that. In fact, it makes you more able to do certain things, and others you have to learn.
Okay, so just be conscious, make better choices
Yes.
around what you're doing, and don't label yourself.
Yes. Be conscious that you always can choose how to behave, and that's real.
It does remind me of a quote from another book that I read.
I see.
It was a quote from Stephen Bartlett's book, Happy Sexy Millionaire.
Oh,
He
I
said-
haven't read that.
in which he says, you can choose to be defined by what happens to you, or you can choose to be defined by your response to it.
That's perfect. That's
Brilliant. Yeah. That
Wasn't
resonated
me.
with you. It wasn't. But you remembered it. Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was someone else that inspired him too,
yeah.
and he
True.
made his own version.
True.
But at the end is that you're always focusing what you can control, you know, and that will enable you and empower you, you know. And I'm coming back to the toxic workplaces or not, toxic people. At the end, we are in anything we are doing in any organization. We are here to succeed. We cannot be making others feel unhappy and bad, and you know, life is better when you smile. And
Life
it's
is better when you smile. I love that.
And it doesn't mean you have to be like, it's not a fake smile or anything, you know. It's like kindness, and it's, you know, we're grateful to be here. And
No, there is something behind the science of a smile, right?
Yes,
It does release
yes,
positive energy,
yes.
even if you force a smile because of the muscles.
Yes, exactly. Fake it until you make it, right?
Yes.
Sometimes, you know, if you have a bad day, okay, try to smile and focus in the so many good things you have also to be grateful for. One day, I try. I'm not a fan of the grateful diaries and, you know, and journaling.
Yes.
However, one day, sometimes I do, I say, today I'm going to write everything that I was grateful for. And, you know, you can write 90 things. The person that led you in the traffic light, the person that, this job you had, this thing, and you end up taking for granted many things.
My friend has a ritual every night with her kids where they have to write something that they're grateful for, and they put it into a jar, and at the end of the month they read it.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, cute.
Just very cute, and
Yeah.
she's been doing it ever since they were kids.
Yes, and you realize how many little things. You said it before. The culture is about the little things, not the big things. You know, people.
It's about
it's
the small
about
stuff.
The small stuff that is hidden. You know, small little stuff.
And while we're talking about the whole taking responsibility and choosing and mental health, do you feel that, all this now remote work, and some people permanently working remotely, you know, in their bedroom or in their, is that good for mental health? Is that affecting it negatively, do you think, or not really? Is the benefit of not having to drive, you know, offsetting it?
That's a very good question. I will not dare to speak for everybody what is good, because I think that's part of the key is what is good for you, what works for you. And for some people, you know, maybe they will prefer to be in the room or in the house. So I think it's everything in balance. I believe for the culture of a company, people have to interact presentially at least sometimes, you know. It's an argument to be done like, in Spanish we say, el roce hace el cariño, you know, when you can see people and you can touch people and see each other in the same space, there is something, some energy that is created.
You can feed off each other.
Each
Community,
other.
they say
community. So I believe remotely, but however, is for discussion and for sharing it frankly, what works here, what doesn't, and for every person. But of course, being always in the same space is not always good. You have to go out. You have to, children when they play video games, about video games when if you are playing video games and you are not doing good, what they tell you, they say, go and touch some grass.
Go and touch some grass. Oh,
Really? I don't know that.
Yeah.
I played a lot of video games.
Yeah.
Never touched grass.
You're going to have to go now. Touch some sand here.
Yeah, and apparently children, it's like come on, you don't play well. Stop playing and go and touch some grass. But I think it's something in that, like we should touch some grass, always. Because to be grounded, yeah.
And Montserrat, thank you so much. This has been, honestly, I want to get into the fireside chat questions. So many great nuggets for everyone to take away, even for us. I love listening to that.
Yes.
So these are one-word answers.
One-word answers.
One-word.
Or one phrase.
No, these ones are one word.
Oh, one word, okay.
And then the phrase is a psalmist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Who are more currently toxic bosses, females or males?
I want to say one word, but I feel like...
Currently.
Currently. Female.
Okay. Did you expect that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
But can I explain now or no? A little bit
If
why?
you'd like
Yes.
to.
Yes,
go
I
for
will.
it.
I love this thing that, there is this saying that it says there is a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. And that was said, I don't remember her name, now it's not coming to me, but the phrase is very famous. But unfortunately, I'm all about the women, I'm a woman, I got prizes for supporting other women, but unfortunately, still some women have adopted the bad style of men, and it's, masculine. I hear many of my friends suffering, as you say, with a bad boss who was a woman. Myself.
Yeah,
so many women, we have very bad bosses who are women. So that's why I say female. Although I didn't want to because I want to be sorority.
No, that's why I said currently because of that whole masculine, feminine energy. Actually, you've spoken about this before, about women taking on a masculine kind of energy when really we should be sitting in our female energy.
Yeah, because it's great. It's nurturing. It's positive. It's multiplying. We multiply. We give life, and we should be more embracing our nature.
My theory on this, hypothesis on this, is this will all change. This will all improve in about 15 years.
15 years.
Yeah, because right now you have obviously this whole, women empowerment movement. Women are, and rightly so. It was much needed. They're coming in, but obviously because it's still relatively new, there is insecurity, and as you said earlier, that insecurity sometimes makes you do things.
Yes.
Makes you
out of character.
Yes, out of character. So it may not be the norm. I think so 15 years down the road, it will become a norm for women to be in powerful positions. And I think that the insecurity will subside, and then they will become better leaders.
Yes.
Yes. Don't feel it's I've experienced it,
hypothesis.
so I can.
Hypothesis.
Could be wrong.
Okay. They could be right. Hopefully earlier, actually.
Hopefully earlier.
Okay. What's one word to describe a toxic boss?
Micromanagement.
Okay.
Narcissist.
I wanted to say that because we've talked too much. I say
talked too much.
micromanagement, when it's like,
Specific following up. Okay.
Yeah, too much micromanagement doesn't let you breathe.
All right. What's the worst trait in a leader?
Taker. When you are a taker and you take selfish, you take more than you give. You have to be generous as a leader.
Oh, I love that word, generous.
Yeah.
Generous as a leader.
I read this in a book just recently.
Yeah.
To be generous as a leader?
The word taker.
Yeah.
There's
It's
takers and
giver
there's givers.
takers.
There's givers
Adam
and there's
Grant.
takers.
Adam Grant. Adam Grant talks about that, but if you think about it, you as a leader, you have to give, and you have to give your team, you know. Well, an anecdote in that generosity, my grandmother was called Generous in my dad's side.
That's beautiful.
Generosa, yeah.
What a beautiful name.
It's beautiful, right?
Generosa.
And Generosa,
I
you
like
say
it.
very well. You say like it's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Generosa.
Yeah, generous.
Okay. One more, and then we'll go to Osama's question. What's one feeling people experience in a toxic job?
One feeling, impotence.
Impotence.
Impotence, like the feeling, it's nothing I can do. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't. You know, it's this, ugh.
It's a heavy word.
Yeah, that was a heavy word. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
everyone kind of felt it because
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is one feeling you have is like, oh my God, nothing I do works. I confront, doesn't work. I do this, it's like it's never enough. And you feel impotence with this lack of control, you know. That's when you give up.
it's heavy.
It's heavy. It's toxic. Toxic is heavy.
Yeah.
You should eradicate
All
it.
right, eradicated.
Eradicate
Like a
toxicity.
pest.
Like a pest, an alliance against toxicity in workplaces. Nobody wins.
Nobody
Everybody
wins.
loses.
Nobody wins.
Yeah.
So, one last question.
One last question. Let's go.
With all this discussion about toxicity, narcissists, is that how do you see the workplace culture evolve over the next 5 to 10 years? And you talked about hope. Is there hope?
Well, I believe it is, because at the end of the day, organizations want to make money, want to achieve their objectives, and they are going to realize that the only pathway to prosperity is creating hope and creating workplaces where people can be more, not less. People can be super, you know, not less and belittle. They can be the best versions of themselves, so companies can have more profit, happy people, happy employees, happy customers, right? So I think I'm going to fight for it. So I think I have hope, because you can see it. You can start see some green shots and a shift is happening. The fact that we are talking about this so openly and organizations are trying shows that there is hope.
So
And
there
we
is
are-
hope.
We can play our part as well.
Yes.
Yes,
From a
exactly.
recruitment standpoint, recruit the right leaders.
Yes.
And
that-
support the right
And
leaders.
support the
you
right
know,
leaders.
you have. I always believe that that head talent hunters or headhunters, you have the ability to know a lot why people leave, and it's such a privilege information to know. And I think that your job should not end there. You know, you can become like partners, and you are partners
Yes.
of this talent for life. So also it makes sense that you go to other spheres. So you play a key role, and obviously you are leading the way. So
And that's where the vision comes in of building thriving organizations.
exactly,
100%.
exactly.
Montserrat, thank you very, very much. So insightful. And I mean, would love to have you again.
Yeah, there's so much, like, we could be talking about this topic for...
Anytime, yeah. Thank you for having me. I really enjoy, and I think I appreciate your authenticity and making something that is a conversation. So anytime.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for listening to Chat GRG. Be sure to follow us on our socials, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. See you next time.